38, and I think it's actually about 42 at this point. But
Well, yeah, Shaw's in the 40-ish range, I think.
yeah, yeah, I'm sure he probably wrote more plays than Shakespeare, just to say I did more
More
plays than him.
words.
Yeah, yeah. I saw, and let me see, are we? Oh, yes, we are live on YouTube. Welcome, welcome. This is the Shaw Project reading of Mrs. Warren's Profession. I'm Paul Sugarman from the Instant Shakespeare Company, and so presenting on Zoom Mrs. Warren's Profession. And Drew Bolander is the playmaster on this. And so over to you, Drew.
Okay, hello everybody. I'm Drew Bolander, and I play mastering this production of the Shaw Project's Mrs. Warren's Profession, probably the most performed of his early plays, and still very scandalous and still very ahead of its time, ahead of this time. Really interesting play and a very interesting and new, I think, at the time, depiction of women, particularly in the character of Vivi, who was really sort of pushing the boundaries of the type of women you see on stage. So yeah, let's just go into it, and we're going to, first let's introduce the cast. So let's go around in a circle, and we'll start with Paula.
I'm Paula Hosa, and I am playing Mrs. Warren.
And Leah.
I'm Leah Schwartz. I'm playing Vivi.
Clinton.
I'm Clinton Powell. I'm playing Pratt.
Ben.
Anthropology, Sir George Crofts.
David.
I'm David Seater, and I'm reading Reverend Samuel Gardner.
And I'm Drew Bolander, and I will be reading the stage directions as well as playing Frank. So without further ado, let's get into Mrs. Warren's Profession. Act 1. Summer afternoon in a cottage garden on the eastern slope of a hill a little south of Hazelmere in Surrey. A lady's bicycle is propped against the wall under the window. A little right to the porch, a hammock is slung from 2 posts. A big canvas umbrella stuck in the ground keeps the sun off the hammock, in which a young lady is reading and making notes. In front of the hammock, and within reach of her hand, is a common kitchen chair with a pile of serious-looking books and a supply of writing paper on it. A gentleman, walking on the common, comes into sight from behind the cottage. He seems not certain of his way. He looks over the palings, takes stock of the place, and sees the young lady.
I beg your pardon. Can you direct me to Hindhead View, Mrs. Allison's?
This is Mrs. Allison's.
Indeed. Perhaps, may I ask, are you Miss Vivi Warren?
Yes.
I'm afraid I appear intrusive. My name is Pratt. Pray, don't let me disturb you.
Oh, come in, Mr. Pratt. Glad to see you.
Very kind of you indeed, Miss Warren. Has your mother arrived?
Is she coming?
Didn't you expect us?
No.
Oh, now goodness me. I hope I've not mistaken the day. That would be just like me, you know. Your mother arranged that she was to come down from London, and that I was to come over from Horsham to be introduced to you.
Did she? My mother rather has a trick of taking me by surprise, to see how I behave myself while she's away, I suppose. I fancy I shall take my mother very much by surprise one of these days if she makes arrangements that concern me without consulting me beforehand. She hasn't come.
I'm really very sorry.
It's not your fault, Mr. Pratt, is it? And I'm very glad you've come. You're the only one of my mother's friends I have ever asked her to bring to see me.
Oh, now this is really very good of you, Miss Warren.
Will you come indoors, or would you rather sit out here and talk?
It will be nicer out here, don't you think?
Then I'll go get you a chair.
Oh, pray, allow me.
Take care of your fingers. They're rather dodgy things, those chairs.
Oh, now, do let me take that hand chair. A hard chair. I like hard chairs.
So do I. Sit down, Mr. Pratt.
By the way, though, hadn't we better go to the station to meet your mother?
Why? She knows the way.
Yeah, I suppose she does.
Do you know, you were just like what I expected. I hope you are disposed to be friends with me.
Oh, thank you. My dear Miss Warren. Thank you. Dear me. Oh, I'm so glad your mother hasn't spoiled you.
How?
Well, in making you too conventional. You know, my dear Miss Warren, I'm a born anarchist. I hate authority. It spoils the relations between parent and child, even between mother and daughter. Now, I was always afraid that your mother would strain her authority to make you very conventional. It's such a relief to find that she hasn't.
Oh, have I been behaving unconventionally?
Oh, no. Oh, dear, no. At least not conventionally, unconventionally. You understand? But it was so charming of you to say that you were disposed to be friends with me. You modern young ladies are splendid, perfectly splendid. When I was your age, young men and women were afraid of each other. There was no good fellowship, nothing real, only gallantry, copied out of novels and as vulgar and affected as it could be. Maidenly reserve, gentlemanly chivalry. Always saying no when you meant yes. A simple purgatory for shy and sincere souls.
Yes, I imagine there must have been a frightful waste of time, especially women's time.
Oh, waste of life, waste of everything. But things are improving. Do you know, I've been in a positive state of excitement about meeting you ever since your magnificent achievements at Cambridge. A thing unheard of in my day. It was perfectly splendid. Your tying with the third Wrangler. Just the right place, you know. The first Wrangler is always a dreamy, morbid fellow in whom the thing is pushed to the lengths of a disease.
It doesn't pay. I wouldn't do it again for the same money.
The same money?
Yes, £50. Perhaps you don't know how it was. Mrs. Latham, my tutor at Newnham, told my mother that I could distinguish myself in the mathematical tripos if I went for it in earnest. The papers were full just then of Philippa Summers beating the senior wrangler. You remember about it, of course. Well, anyhow, she did, and nothing would please my mother but that I should do the same thing. I said flatly that it was not worth my while to face the grind since I was not going in for teaching, but I offered to try for fourth wrangler or thereabouts for £50. She closed with me at that, and after a little grumbling, and I was better than my bargain. But I wouldn't do it again for that. £200 would have been nearer the mark.
Lord bless me. That's a very practical way of looking at it.
Did you expect to find me an unpractical person?
But surely it's practical to consider not only the work these honors cost, but also the culture they bring.
Culture. My dear Mr. Pratt, do you know what the mathematical tripos means? It means grind for 6 to 8 hours a day at mathematics, and nothing but mathematics. I'm supposed to know something about science, but I know nothing except the mathematics it involves. I can make calculations for engineers, electricians, insurance companies, and so on, but I know next to nothing about engineering or electricity or insurance. I don't even know arithmetic well. Outside mathematics, lawn tennis, eating, sleeping, cycling, and walking, I'm a more ignorant barbarian than any woman could possibly be who hadn't gone in for the tripos.
Oh, what a monstrous, wicked, rascally system. I knew it. I felt at once that it meant destroying all that makes womanhood beautiful.
I don't object to it on that score in the least. I shall turn it to very good account, I assure you.
In what way?
I shall set up chambers in the city and work at actuarial calculations and conveyancing. Under cover of that, I shall do some law with one eye on the stock exchange all the time. I've come down here by myself to read law, not for a holiday, as my mother imagines. I hate holidays.
You make my blood run cold. Are you to have no romance, no beauty in your life?
I don't care for either, I assure you.
You can't mean that.
Oh, yes, I do. I like working and getting paid for it. When I'm tired of working, I like a comfortable chair, a cigar, a little whiskey, and a novel with a very good detective story in it.
I don't believe it. I am an artist, and I can't believe it. I refuse to believe it. It's only that you haven't discovered yet what a wonderful world art can open up to you.
Yes, I have. Last May, I spent 6 weeks in London with Honoria Fraser. Mamma thought we were doing a round of sightseeing together, but I was really at Honoria's chambers in Chancery Lane every day, working away at actuarial calculations for her and helping her as well as a greenhorn could. In the evenings, we smoked and talked and never dreamt of going out except for exercise. And I never enjoyed myself more in my life. I cleared all my expenses and got initiated into the business without a fee in the bargain.
But bless my heart and soul, Miss Warren, do you call that discovering art?
Wait a bit, that wasn't the beginning. I went up to town on an invitation from some artistic people in Fitzjohn's Avenue. One of the girls was a Newnham chum. They took me to the National Gallery, opera,
Good.
and to a concert where the band played all the evening, Beethoven and Wagner and so on. I wouldn't go through that experience again for anything if you could offer me. I held out for civility's sake until the third day, and then I said plump out that I couldn't stand any more of it and went off to Chancery Lane. Now, you know the sort of perfectly splendid modern young lady I am. How do you think I shall get on with my mother?
Well, I hope...
It's not so much what you hope as what you believe that I want to know.
Well, frankly, I am afraid your mother will be a little disappointed. Not from any shortcomings on your part, you know, but I don't mean that. But you're so different from her ideal.
Her what?
Her ideal.
You mean her ideal of me?
Yes.
What on earth is it like?
Well, you must have observed, Ms. Warren, that people who are dissatisfied with their own bringing up generally think that the world would be all right if everybody were to be brought up quite differently. Now, your mother's life has been, I suppose you know.
Don't suppose anything, Mr. Pratt. I hardly know my mother. Since I was a child, I have lived in England at school or at college or with people paid to take charge of me. I have been boarded out all my life. My mother has lived in Brussels or Vienna and never let me go to her. I only see her when she visits England for a few days. I don't complain. It's been very pleasant, for people have been very good to me. And there have always been plenty of money to make things smooth. But don't imagine I know anything about my mother. I know far less than you do.
In that case... But nonsense we're talking. Of course you and your mother will get on capitally. Oh, what a charming little place you have.
Rather a violent change of subject, Mr. Pratt. Why won't my mother's life bear being talked about?
Oh, you mustn't say that. Isn't it natural that I should have a certain delicacy in talking to my old friend's daughter about her behind her back? You and she will have plenty of opportunity of talking about it when she comes.
No, she won't talk about it either. However, I dare say you have good reasons for telling me nothing. Only mind this, Mr. Pratt, I expect there will be a battle royale when my mother hears of my Chancery Lane project.
I'm afraid there will be.
Well, I shall win, because I want nothing but my fare to London and start there tomorrow evening with my own living by devilling for Honoria. Besides, I have no mysteries to keep up, and it seems she has. I shall use that to advantage over her, if necessary.
Oh, no, pray. You not do such a thing.
Then tell me why not.
I really cannot. I appeal to your good feeling. Besides, you may be too bold. Your mother is not to be trifled with when she's angry.
You can't frighten me, Mr. Pratt. In that month at Chancery Lane, I had opportunities of taking the measure of one or two women very like my mother. You may back me to win. But if I hit harder in my ignorance than I need, remember it is you who refuse to enlighten me. Now let's drop the subject.
One word, Miss Warren. I'd better tell you. It's very difficult, but...
Mrs. Warren and Sir George Crofts arrive at the gate.
Here they are. How do you do? Mr. Pratt's been here this half hour waiting for you.
Well, if you've been waiting, Praddy, it's your own fault. I thought you'd have had the gumption to know I was coming by the 3:10 train. Phoebe, Put your hat on, dear. You'll get sunburned. Oh, I forgot to introduce you. Sir George Crofts, my little Vivy.
May I shake hands with a young lady whom I've known by reputation very long as the daughter of one of my oldest friends?
If you like.
Well, George, what do you think of her?
Yes, sir. Powerful fists. You shake hands with her, Pratt?
Yes, it will pass off presently.
I hope so. Oh, allow me.
Let Sir George help you with the chairs, dear.
Here you are. You'd like some tea, wouldn't you?
I'm dying for a drop to drink.
I'll see about it.
Oh, just look at him, Praddy. He looks cheerful, don't he? He's been worrying my life out these 3 years to have that little girl of mine shown to him, and now that I've done it, he's quite out of countenance. Come, sit up, George, and take your stick out of your mouth.
I think, if you don't mind me saying so, that we'd better get out of the habit of thinking of her as a little girl. You see, she has really distinguished herself, and I'm not sure from what I have seen of her that she is not older than any of us.
Oh, only listen to him, George. Older than any of us. Well, she has been stuffing you nicely with her importance.
But young people are particularly sensitive about being treated in that way.
Yes, and young people have to get all that nonsense taken out of them, and a good deal more besides. Now, don't you interfere, Praddy. I know how to treat my own child as well as you do. What's the matter with him? Why does he take it like that for?
Afraid of Pratt.
What? Me? Afraid of dear old Praddy? Why, a fly wouldn't be afraid of him.
You're afraid of him.
I'll trouble you to mind your own business and not try any of your sulks on me. I'm not afraid of you, anyhow. If you can't make yourself agreeable, you better go home. Come, Praddy. I know it was only a tender-heartedness. You're afraid I'll bully her.
My dear Kitty, you think I'm offended. Don't imagine that, pray don't. But I often notice things that escape you, and though you never take my advice, you sometimes admit afterwards that you ought to have taken it.
Well, what do you notice now?
Only that Vivy is a grown woman. Pray, Kitty, treat her with every respect.
Respect? Treat my own daughter with respect? What next, pray?
Mother, will you come to my room before tea?
Oh, yes, dearie. Don't be cross, Praddy.
I say, Pratt,
Yes,
I want to ask you a particular question.
certainly.
Oh, that's right. They might hear us from the window. Look here. Did Kitty ever tell you who that girl's father is?
Never.
Have you any suspicion who it might be?
None.
Well, I know, of course, that you perhaps might feel bound not to tell if she had said anything to you, but it's very awkward to be uncertain about it now that we shall be meeting the girl every day. We don't exactly know how we ought to feel towards her.
What difference can that make? We take her on her own merits. What does it matter who her father is?
Then you know who he was.
I said no just now. Did you not hear me?
Now, look here, Pratt, I ask you as a particular favor, if you do know, look, I only say if you know, you might at least set my mind at rest about her. I mean, the fact is, I felt attracted.
What do you mean?
Well, don't be alarmed. It's quite an innocent feeling. That's what puzzles me about it. Why, for all I know, I might be her father.
You? Impossible.
Ah, you know for certain that I'm not.
I know nothing about it, I tell you, any more than you. But really, Crofts, no, it's out of the question. There's not the least resemblance.
Well, as to that, there's no resemblance between her and her mother that I can see. I suppose she's not your daughter, is she?
Oh, really, Crofts?
No offense, Brad. quite allowable as between two men of the world.
Now listen to me, my dear Crofts. I have nothing to do with that side of Miss Warren's life, and never had. She has never spoken to me about it, and of course I have never spoken to her about it. Your delicacy will tell you that a handsome woman needs some friends who are not on that footing with her. The effect of her own beauty would become a torment to her if she could not escape from it occasionally. You're probably on much more confidential terms with Kitty than I am. Surely you can ask her the question yourself.
I have asked her often enough, but she's so determined to keep the child all to herself that she would deny that it ever had a father if she could. Look, I'm thoroughly uncomfortable about it, Pratt.
Well, as you are, at all events, old enough to be her father, I don't mind agreeing that we both regard Miss Vivi in a parental way as a young girl who we are bound to protect and help. What do you say?
Well, I'm no older than you, if you come to that.
Yes, you are, my dear fellow. You were born old. I was born a boy. I've never been able to feel the assurance of a grown-up man in my life.
Freddy! George T!
She's calling us.
Hello, Prad.
Why? Oh, thank God. No, what on earth are you doing here?
Oh, staying with my father.
Oh, the Roman father.
He's rector here. I'm living with my people this autumn for the sake of economy. Things came to a crisis in July. The Roman father had to pay my debts. He's stony broke in consequence, and so am I. What are you up to in these parts? Do you know the people here?
Yes, I'm spending the day with a Ms. Warren.
What? Do you know Vivi? Oh, isn't she a jolly girl? I'm teaching her shooting with this. I'm so glad she knows you. You're just the sort of fellow she ought to know. It's ever so jolly to find you here, Pratt.
I'm an old friend of her mother. Mrs. Warren brought me over to make her daughter's acquaintance.
The mother? Is she here?
Yes, inside at tea.
Freddy! The tea cake will be cold.
Yes, Mrs. Warren, in a moment. I've just met a friend here.
A what?
A friend!
Bring him in.
All right. Will you accept the invitation?
Is that Vivi's mother?
Yes.
Oh, by Jove, what a lark. Do you think she'll like me?
I've no doubt you'll make yourself popular as usual. Come in and try.
Stop a bit. I want to take you into my confidence.
Oh, pray don't. It's only some fresh folly like the bar made at Red Hill.
No, it's ever so much more serious than that. You say you've only just met Vivi for the first time?
Yes.
Then you can have no idea what a girl she is. Such character, such sense, and her cleverness. Oh, my iPad, but I can tell you, she is clever. And need I add, she loves me. Crofts? Ben?
Sorry. I say, Pratt, what are you about? Do come along.
Hello. Sort of chap that would take a prize at a dog show, ain't he? Who's he?
Sir George Crofts, an old friend of Mrs. Warren's. I think we'd better come in.
Frank.
Ah, hello. The Roman father. Yes, Governor, all right, presently. Look here, Pratt, you'd better go into tea. I'll join you directly.
Oh, very good.
Well, sir, who are your friends here, if I may ask?
It's all right, Governor, come in.
No, sir, not until I know whose garden I'm entering.
It's all right. It's Miss Warren's.
I have not seen her at church since she came.
Of course not. She's the third regular. Ever so intellectual. Took a higher degree than you did, so why should she go to hear you preach?
Don't be disrespectful, sir.
Oh, it don't matter. Nobody hears us. Come in. I want to introduce you to her. Do you remember the advice you gave me last July, Governor?
Yes, I advise you to conquer your idleness and flippancy and to work your way into an honorable profession and live on it and not upon me.
No, that's what you thought afterwards. What you actually said was that since I had neither brains nor money, I had better turn my good looks to account by marrying someone with both. Well, look here. Miss Warren has brains, you can't deny that.
Brains are not everything.
No, of course not. There's the money.
I was not thinking of money, sir. I was speaking of higher things. Social position, for instance.
Oh, I don't care a rap about that.
But I do, sir.
Well, nobody wants you to marry her. Anyhow, she has what amounts to a high Cambridge degree, and she seems to have as much money as she wants.
I greatly doubt whether she has as much money as you will want.
Oh, come. I haven't been so very extravagant. I live ever so quietly. I don't drink. I don't bet much. And I never go regularly to the razzle-dazzle as you did when you were my age.
Silence, sir.
Well, you told me yourself when I was making ever such an ass of myself about the barmaid at Redhill that you once offered a woman £50 for letters that you wrote to her when she was...
Frank, for heaven's sake. You are taking an ungentlemanly advantage of what I confided to you for your own good, to save you from an error you would have repented all your life long. Take warning by your father's follies, sir, and don't make them an excuse for your own.
Did you ever hear the story of the Duke of Wellington and his letters?
No, sir, and I don't want to hear it.
The old Iron Duke didn't throw away £50, not he. He just wrote, "Dear Jenny, published and be damned. Yours affectionately, Wellington." That's what you should have done.
Frank, my boy, when I wrote those letters, I put myself into that woman's power. When I told you about them, I put myself, to some extent, I am sorry to say, in your power. She refused my money with these words, which I shall never forget. "Knowledge is power," she said, "and I never sell power." That's more than 20 years ago, and she has never made use of her power or caused me a moment's uneasiness. You are behaving worse to me than she did, Frank.
Oh, I dare say, did you ever preach at her the way you do preach at me every day?
I leave you, sir. You are incorrigible.
Tell them that I shan't be home to tea, will you, Governor, like a good fellow?
Is that your father, Frank? I do so want to meet him.
Certainly. Governor, you're wanted. My father, Miss Warren.
Very glad to see you here, Mr. Gardiner. Mother, come along, you're wanted. Let me introduce.
Why, it's Sam Gardiner gone into the church. Well, I never. Don't you know us, Sam? This is George Crofts, as large as life and twice as natural. Don't you remember me?
I really...
Oh, of course you do. Well, I have a whole album of your letters still. I came across them only the other day.
Miss Vavasor, I believe.
Nonsense. Mrs. Warren, don't you see my daughter there?
End of Act 1. Act 2. Inside the cottage after nightfall.
Oh, Lord. I don't know which is the worst of the country, the walking or the sitting at home with nothing to do. I could do with a whiskey and soda now very well, if only they had such things in this place.
Perhaps Vivy's got some.
Nonsense. What would a young girl like her be doing with such things? Never mind, don't matter. I wonder how she passes her time here. I'd a good deal rather be in Vienna.
Let me take you there.
Ah, would you? I'm beginning to think you're a chip off the old block.
Like the governor, eh?
Never you mind. What do you know about such things? You're only a boy.
Do come to Vienna with me. It'll be ever such larks.
Oh, no, thank you. Vienna's no place for you. At least not until you're a little older. Now, look here, little boy. I know you through and through by your likeness to your father, better than you know yourself. Now, don't you go taking any silly ideas into your head about me, do you hear?
Can't help it, my dear, Mrs. Warren. It runs in the family. She pretends to box his ears, then looks at the pretty laughing upturned face a moment, tempted. At last she kisses him and immediately turns away, out of patience with herself.
There, now I shouldn't have done that. I am wicked. Never you mind, my dear, it's only a motherly kiss. Don't make love to Vivi.
So I have.
What?
Vivi and I are ever such chums.
What do you mean? Now see here. I won't have any young scamp tampering with my little girl. Do you hear? I won't have it.
My dear Mrs. Warren, don't be alarmed. My intentions are honourable, ever so honourable. And your little girl is jolly well able to take care of herself. She don't need looking after so much as her mother. Well, she ain't handsome, you know.
Well, you have got a nice healthy 2 inches of cheek all over you. I don't know where you got it, not from your father anyhow.
Gypsies, I suppose.
The broom squires are far worse.
Remember, you've had your warning.
The perjury at the Winchester Assizes is deplorable.
Well, what became of you two? And where's Praddy and Vivi?
They went up the hill. We went to the village. I wanted a drink.
Well, she oughtn't to go off like that without telling me. Get your father a chair, Frank. Where are your manners? George, where are you going to stay tonight? You can't stay here. And what's Praddy going to do?
Gardner will put me up.
Ah, no doubt you've taken care of yourself. But what about Praddy?
Don't know. I suppose he can sleep at the inn.
Haven't you room for him, Sam?
Well, you see, as rector here, I am not free to do as I like. What is Mr. Pred's social position?
Oh, he's all right. He's an architect. What an old stick in the mud you are, Sam.
Yes, it's all right, Governor. He built that place down in Wales for the Duke of Carnarvon Castle, they call it. You must have heard of it.
In that case, of course, we shall only be too happy. I suppose he knows the Duke personally.
Oh, ever so intimately. You can stick him in Georgina's old room.
Well, that's settled. Now, if those two would only come in and let us have supper, they've no right to stay out after dark like this.
What harm are they doing you?
Well, harm or not, I don't like it.
Better not wait for them, Mrs. Warren. Pratt will stay out as long as possible. He has never known before what it is to stray over the heath on a summer night with my Vivi.
I say you know. Come.
Frank, for once and all, it's out of the question. Mrs. Warren will tell you that it's not to be thought of.
Of course not.
Is that so, Mrs. Warren?
Well, Sam, I don't know. If the girl wants to get married, no good can come of keeping her unmarried.
Married to him? Your daughter to my son? Only think, it's impossible.
It's impossible. Don't be a fool, Kitty.
Why not? Isn't my daughter good enough for your son?
But surely, my dear Mrs. Warren, you know the reasons.
I know no reasons. If you know any, you can tell them to the lad, or to the girl, or to your congregation, if you like.
You know very well that I couldn't tell anyone the reasons, but my boy will believe me when I tell him there are reasons.
Quite right, Dad, he will. But has your boy's conduct ever been influenced by your reasons?
You can't marry her, and that's all about that.
What have you got to do with it, pray?
Precisely what I was going to ask myself in my own graceful fashion.
I don't suppose you don't. I suppose you don't want to marry the girl to a man younger than herself and without either a profession or tuppence to keep her. Ask Sam if you don't believe me. How much money are you going to give him?
Not another penny. He has had his patrimony and has spent the last of it in July.
There, I told you. Yeah.
Oh, this is ever so mercenary. Do you suppose Miss Warren's going to marry for money? If we love one another, then what
Thank you. Your love's a pretty cheap commodity, my lad. If you have no means of keeping a wife, that settles it. You can't have Vivi.
What do you say, Governor, eh?
I agree with Mrs. Warren.
And good old Crofts has already expressed his opinion.
Look here, I want none of your cheek.
I'm ever so sorry to surprise you, Crofts, but you allowed yourselves the liberty of speaking to me like a father a moment ago. One father is enough. Thank you.
Ah,
Mrs. Warren, I cannot give my Vivi up, even for your sake.
Scamp.
And as you no doubt intend to hold out prospects for her, I shall lose no time in placing my case before her. He either fears his fate too much or his deserts too small, that dares not put it to the touch to gain or lose it all.
Wherever have you been, Vivi?
On the hill.
Well, you shouldn't go off like that without letting me know. How could I tell what had become of you? A night coming on, too.
Now, about supper. We shall all be rather crowded in here, I'm afraid.
Did you hear what I said, Vivi?
Yes, Mother. How many are we? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Well, 2 will have to wait until the rest are done. Mrs. Allison only has plates and knives for 4.
Oh, it doesn't matter about me. I can...
You have had a long walk and are hungry, Mr. Pratt. You shall have your supper at once. I can wait myself. I want one person to wait with me. Frank, are you hungry?
Not the least in the world, completely off my peck, in fact.
Neither are you, George. You can wait.
oh, dang it, I've eaten nothing since tea time. Can't Sam do it?
Would you starve my poor father?
Allow me to speak for myself, sir. I am perfectly willing to wait.
There's no need. Only 2 are wanted. Will you take my mother in, Mr. Gardner? Can you squeeze past that corner, Mr. Pratt? It's a rather tight fit. Take off your coat against the whitewash. That's right. Now, are you all comfortable?
Quite, thank you.
Leave the door open, dearie. Oh, Lord, what a draught. You'd better shut it, dear.
Aha, got rid of them. Well, Vivens, what do you think of my governor?
I've hardly spoken to him. He doesn't strike me as a particularly able person.
Well, you know, the old man is not altogether such a fool as he looks. You see, he was shoved into the church, rather, and in trying to live up to it, he makes a much bigger ass of himself than he really is. I don't dislike him as much as you might expect. He means well. How do you think you'll get on with him?
I don't think my future life will be much concerned with him or any of that old circle of my mother's, except perhaps Pratt. What do you think of my mother?
Really and truly?
Yes, really and truly.
Well, she's ever so jolly. But she's rather a caution, isn't she? And Crofts, oh my eye, Crofts.
What a lot, Frank.
What a crew.
If I thought that I was like that I was going to be a waster, shifting along from one meal to another with no purpose and no character and no grit in me, I'd open an artery and bleed to death without one moment's hesitation.
Oh, no, you wouldn't. Why should they take any grind when they can afford not to? I wish I had their luck. No, what I object to is their form. It isn't the thing. It's slovenly, ever so slovenly.
Do you think your form will be any better when you're as old as Crofts if you don't work?
Of course I do. Ever so much better. Oh, Vivens mustn't lecture her little boys incorrigible.
Off with you. Vivens is not in a humour for petting her little boy this evening.
Oh, how unkind.
Be serious. I'm serious.
Good. Let us talk learnedly, Miss Warren. Do you know that all the most advanced thinkers are agreed that half the diseases of the modern civilization are due to the starvation of the effects of the young? Now, I am of the opinion...
Very tiresome. Have you room for Frank in there? He's complaining of starvation.
Of course there is. Here, there's room now beside me. Come along, Mr. Frank.
A little boy will be ever so even with Vivens for this.
Here, Vivi, come on, you too, child. You must be famished. George, you can't be done. You've eaten nothing. Is there anything wrong with you?
All I wanted was a drink.
Oh, Law. Oh. Make your mind easy. Oh, well, I like enough to eat, but a little of that cold beef and cheese and lettuce goes a long way.
Why are you going encouraging that young pup for?
Now, see here, George. What are you up to about that girl? I've been watching your way of looking at her. Remember, I know you and what your looks mean.
There's no harm in looking at her, is there?
I'd put you out and pack you back to London pretty soon if I saw any of your nonsense. My girl's little finger is more to me than your whole body and soul. Make your mind easy. The young pup has no more chance than you have.
Mayn't a man take an interest in a girl?
Not a man like you.
How old is she?
Never you mind how old she is.
Why do you make such a secret of it?
Because I choose.
Well, I'm not 50 yet. My property is as good as it ever was.
Yes, because you're as stingy as you're vicious.
And a baronet isn't to be picked up every day. No other man in my position would put up with you for a mother-in-law. Now, why shouldn't she marry me?
You?
Yeah, we three could live together quite comfortably. I'd die before her and leave her a bouncing widow with plenty of money. Why not? It's been growing inside my mind all the time I've been walking with that fool inside there.
Oh, yes, it's the sort of thing that would grow in your mind.
Look here, Kitty. You're a sensible woman. You needn't put on any moral airs. I'll ask no more questions, and you need answer none. I'll settle the whole property on her, and if you want a check for yourself on the wedding day, you can name any figure you like, in reason.
So it's come to that with you, George, like all the other worn-out old creatures.
Damn you!
Where is Sir George?
Gone out to have a pipe. Well, dearie, have you had a good supper?
You know what Mrs. Allison's suppers are. Oh, poor Frank. Was all the beef gone? Did it get nothing but bread and cheese and ginger beer? Her butter is really awful. I must get some from the stores.
Who in heaven's name?
Frank, my boy, it is time for us to be thinking of home. Your mother does not know yet that we have visitors.
I'm afraid we're giving trouble.
Not the least in the world. My mother will be delighted to see you. She's a genuinely intellectual, artistic woman, and she sees nobody here from one year's end to the other except the governor, so you can only imagine how jolly dull it pans out for her. You're not intellectual or artistic, are you, Pater? So take Pratt home at once, and I'll stay here to entertain Mrs. Warren. You'll pick up Crofts in the garden. He'll be excellent company for the bullpup.
Come with us, Frank. Mrs. Warren has not seen Ms. Vivy for a long time, and we've prevented them from having a moment together yet.
Of course, I forgot. Ever so thanks for reminding me. Perfect gentleman, Praddy, always were. My ideal through life. Ah, if you had only been my father instead of this unworthy old man.
Silence, sir, silence. You're profane.
You should keep him in better order, Sam. Good night. Here, take George's hat and stick with my compliments.
Good night. Come along, sir, at once.
Bye-bye, Praddy.
Bye-bye, Kitty.
Kissums?
No, I hate you.
Sorry. Good night, Mrs. Warren.
Did you ever in your life hear anyone rattle on so? Isn't he a tease? Now that I think of it, dearie, don't you go encouraging him. I'm sure he's a regular good for nothing.
I'm afraid so. Oh, poor Frank, I shall have to get rid of him, but I shall feel sorry for him, though he's not worth it. That man Crofts does not seem to me to be good for much either, is he?
What do you know of men, child, to talk that way of them? You'll have to make up your mind to see a good deal of Sir George Crofts, as he's a friend of mine.
Why? Do you expect that we shall be much together? You and I mean.
Well, of course, until you're married. You're not going back to college again.
Do you think my way of life would suit you? I doubt it.
Your way of life? What do you mean?
Has it really never occurred to you, Mother, that I have a way of life like other people?
What nonsense is it you're trying to talk? Do you want to show your independence now that you're a great little person at school? Oh, don't be a fool, child.
That's all you have to say on the subject, is it, Mother?
Don't you keep on asking me questions like that. Hold your tongue. You and your way of life, indeed. What next? Your way of life will be what I please, so it will. I've been noticing these airs in you ever since you got that tripos or whatever you call it. If you think I'm going to put up with them, you're mistaken, and the sooner you find it out, the better. All I have to say on the subject, indeed. Do you know who you're speaking to, miss?
No. Who are you? What are you?
You young imp.
Everybody knows my reputation, my social standing, and the profession I intend to pursue. I know nothing about you. What is it? What is that way of life which you intend me to share with you and Sir George Crofts, pray?
Take care. I shall do something I'll be sorry for after, and you too.
Well, let us drop the subject until you are better able to face it. You want some good walks and a little lawn tennis to set you up? You are shockingly out of condition. You're not able to manage 20 yards uphill today without stopping to pant, and your wrists are mere rolls of fat. Look at mine.
Phoebe!
Oh, now pray, don't begin to cry, anything but that. I really cannot stand whimpering. I will go out of the room if you do.
Oh, my darling. How can you be so hard on me? Have I no rights over you as your mother?
Are you my mother?
Am I your mother? Oh, Phoebe.
Then where are our relatives? My father? Our family friends? You claim the rights of a mother, the right to call me a fool and child, to speak to me as no woman in authority over me at college dare to speak to me, to dictate my way of life and to force on me the acquaintance of a brute whom anyone can see to be the most vicious sort of London man about town. Before I give myself the trouble to resist such claims, I may as well find out whether they have any real existence.
Oh, no, stop. I am your mother, I swear it. Oh, you can't turn on me. You can't mean it, my own child. It's not natural. You believe me, don't you? Say you believe me.
Who was my father?
You don't know what you're asking. I can't tell you.
Oh, yes, you can, if you like. I have a right to know, and you know very well that I have that right. You can refuse to tell me if you please, but if you do, you will see the last of me tomorrow morning.
Oh, it's too horrible to hear you talk like that. You wouldn't. You couldn't leave me.
Yes, without a moment's hesitation, if you trifle with me about this. How can I feel sure that I may not have the contaminated blood of that brutal waster in my veins?
No. Oh, on my oath, it's not he. Nor any of the rest that you've ever met. I'm certain of that, at least.
You are certain of that at least? Ah, you mean that is all you are certain of? I see. Oh, don't do that, Mother. You know you don't feel it a bit. Well, that is enough for tonight. At what hour would you like breakfast? Is 8:30 too early for you?
My God! What sort of woman are you?
What sort? The sort the world is mostly made of, I should hope. Otherwise, I don't understand how it gets its business done. Come, pull yourself together. That's right.
Oh, you're very rough with me, Vivi.
Nonsense. What about bed? It's past 10.
Oh, what's the use of my going to bed? Do you think I could sleep?
Why not? I shall.
You? You've no heart. Oh, I won't bear it. I won't put up with the injustice of it. What right have you to set yourself up above me like this? You boast of what you are to me. To me, who gave you a chance of being what you are. What chance had I? Shame on you for a bad daughter and a stuck-up prude.
Don't think for a moment I set myself above you in any way. You attacked me with the conventional authority of a mother. I defended myself with the conventional superiority of a respectable woman. Frankly, I am not going to stand any of your nonsense. And when you drop it, I shall not expect you to stand any of mine. I shall always respect you. I shall always respect your right to your own opinions and your own way of life.
My own opinions and my own way of life? Listen to her talking. Do you think I was brought up like you, able to pick and choose my own way of life? Do you think I did what I did because I liked it or thought it right? Or wouldn't rather have gone to college and been a lady if I'd had the chance?
Everybody has some choice, Mother. The poorest girl alive may not be able to choose between being the Queen of England or Principal of Newnham, but she can choose between rag picking and flower selling according to her taste. People are always blaming circumstances for what they are. I don't believe in circumstances. The people who get on in this world are the people who get up and look for the circumstances they want, and if they can't find them, make them.
Oh, it's easy to talk, isn't it? Here, would you like to know what my circumstances were?
Yes, you had better tell me. Won't you sit down?
Oh, I'll sit down, don't you be afraid. Do you know what your grandmother was?
No.
No, you don't. I do. She called herself a widow and had a fried fish shop down by the Mint and kept herself and 4 daughters out of it. 2 of us were sisters, that was me and Liz, and we were both good looking and well made. I suppose our father was a well-fed man. Mother pretended he was a gentleman, but I don't know. The other 2 were only half sisters, undersized, ugly, starved looking, hard-working, honest, poor creatures. Liz and I would have half murdered them if Mother hadn't half murdered us to keep our hands off them. See, they were the respectable ones. Well, what did they get by their respectability? I'll tell you. One of them worked in a white lead factory 12 hours a day for 9 shillings a week until she died of lead poisoning. She only expected to get her hands a little paralyzed, but she died. The other was always held up to us as a model because she married a government labourer in the Deptford victualling yard and kept his room and the 3 children neat and tidy on 18 shillings a week. Until he took to drink. That was worth being respectable for, wasn't it?
Did you and your sister think so?
Well, Liz didn't, I can tell you. She had more spirit. We both went to church school. That was part of the ladylike airs we gave ourselves, to be superior to the children that knew nothing and went nowhere. And we stayed there until Liz went out one night and never came back. I know the schoolmistress thought I'd soon follow her example. The clergyman was always warning me that Lizzie'd end up by jumping off the Waterloo Bridge. Poor fool. That was all he knew about it. But I was more afraid of the white lead factory than I was of the river. And so would you have been in my place. The clergyman got me a situation as a scullery maid in a temperance restaurant where they sent out for anything you liked. Then I was a waitress. Then I went to the bar at Waterloo Station, 14 hours a day, serving drinks and washing glasses for 4 shillings a week. And my board. That was considered a great promotion for me. Well, one cold, wretched night when I was so tired I could hardly keep myself awake, who should come up for half of a scotch? But Lizzie, in a long fur cloak, elegant and comfortable, with a lot of sovereigns in her purse.
My Aunt Lizzie.
Yes, and a very good aunt to have, too. She's living down at Winchester now, close to the cathedral. One of the most respectable ladies there. Chaperones girls at the country ball, if you please. No river for Liz. No, thank you. You remind me of Liz a little. She was a first-rate businesswoman. Saved money from the beginning. Never let herself look too like what she was. Never lost her head, nor never threw away a chance. When she saw that I'd grown up good-looking, she said to me across the bar, "What are you doing here, you little fool? Wearing out your health and your appearance for other people's profit?" Liz was saving money then to take a house for herself in Brussels. And she thought we too could save faster than one. So she lent me some money and gave me a start. And I saved steadily and first paid her back and then went into business with her as a partner. Well, why shouldn't I have done it? The house in Brussels was a real high class, a much better place than for a woman to be in than the factory where Aunt Jane got poisoned. None of the girls were ever treated as I was treated in the scullery of that temperance place, or at the Waterloo bar, or at home. Would you have had me stay in them and become a worn-out old drudge before I was 40?
No, but why did you choose that business? Saving money and good management will succeed in any business.
Yes, saving money. But where can a woman get the money to save in any other business? Could you save out of 4 shillings a week and keep yourself dressed as well? Not you. Of course, if you're a plain woman and can't earn anything more, or if you have a turn for music or the stage or newspaper writing, well, that's different. But neither Liz nor I had any turn for such things at all. All we had was our appearance and our turn for pleasing men. Do you think we were such fools as to let other people trade in our good looks by employing us as shop girls or barmaids or waitresses when we could trade in them ourselves and get all the profits instead of starvation wages? Not likely.
You were certainly quite justified from the business point of view.
Yes, or any other point of view. What is any respectable girl brought up to do but to catch some rich man's fancy and get the benefit of his money by marrying him? As if a marriage ceremony can make any difference in the right or wrong of the thing. Oh, the hypocrisy of the world makes me sick. Liz and I had to work and save and calculate just like other people. Elsewise, we should be as poor as any good-for-nothing drunken waster of a woman that thinks her luck will last forever. I despise such people. They've no character. And if there's a thing I hate in a woman, it's a want of character.
Come now, Mother, frankly, isn't it part of what you call character in a woman that she should greatly dislike such a way of making money?
Well, of course. Everybody dislikes having to work and make money. But they have to do it all the same. I'm sure I've often pitied a poor girl, tired out and in low spirits, having to try to please some man that she doesn't care 2 straws for, some half-drunken fool who thinks he's making himself agreeable when he's teasing and worrying and disgusting a woman so that hardly any money could pay her for putting up with it. But she has to bear with being with the disagreeables and to take the rough with the smooth, just like a nurse in a hospital or anyone else. It's not work that any woman would do for pleasure, goodness knows. Though to hear the pious people talk, you would suppose it was a bed of roses.
Still, you consider it worthwhile. It pays.
Of course it's worthwhile to a poor girl if she can resist temptation and is good looking and well conducted and sensible. It's far better than any other employment open to her. I've always thought it shouldn't be. It can't be right, Vivi, that there shouldn't be better opportunities for women. I stick to that. It's wrong, but it's so, right or wrong, and a girl must make the best of it. But of course it's not worthwhile for a lady. If you took to it, you'd be a fool. But I should have been a fool if I'd taken to anything else.
Mother, suppose we were both as poor as you were in those wretched old days. Are you quite sure that you wouldn't advise me to try the Waterloo bar or marry a laborer or even go into the factory?
Of course not. What sort of mother do you take me for? How could you keep your self-respect in such starvation and slavery? And what's a woman worth? What's life worth? Without self-respect? Why, am I independent and able to give my daughter a first-rate education when other women that had just as good opportunities are in the gutter? Because I always knew how to respect myself and control myself. Why is Liz looked up to in a cathedral town? Same reason. Where would we be now if we'd minded the clergyman's foolishness? Scrubbing floors for 1 and 6 a day and nothing to look forward to but the workhouse infirmary? Oh, don't you be led astray by people who don't know the world, my girl. The only way for a woman to provide for herself decency is for her to be good to some man that can afford to be good to her. If she's in her own station of life, let her make him marry her. But if she's far beneath him, she can't expect it. Why should she? It wouldn't be for her own happiness. Ask any lady in London society that has daughters, and she'll tell you that the same, except that I tell you straight and she'll tell you crooked. That's all the difference.
My dear mother, you are a wonderful woman. You are stronger than all England. And are you really and truly not one wee bit doubtful or ashamed?
Well, of course, dearie, it's only good manners to be ashamed of it. It's expected from a woman. Women have to pretend to feel a great deal that they don't feel. Liz used to be angry with me for plumping out the truth about it. She used to say that when every woman could learn enough from what was going on in the world before her eyes, there was no need to talk about it to her. But then Liz was such a perfect lady. She had the true instinct of it, while I was always a bit of a vulgarian. I used to be so pleased when you sent me your photos to see that you were growing up like Liz. You've just her ladylike, determined way. But I can't stand saying one thing when everyone knows I mean another. What's the use of such hypocrisy? If people arrange the world that way for women, there's no good pretending it's arranged the other way. No, I never was a bit ashamed, really. I consider I had a right to be proud of how we managed everything so respectably, never had a word against us, and how the girls were so well taken care of. Some of them did very well. One of them married an ambassador. But of course now, I daren't talk about such things. Whatever would they think of us? Oh dear. I do believe I'm getting sleepy after all.
I believe it is I who will not be able to sleep now. Better let in some fresh air before locking up. Oh, what a beautiful night, look.
Yes, dear. But take care you don't catch a death of cold from the night air.
Nonsense.
Oh, yes. Everything I say is nonsense, according to you.
No, really, it is not so, Mother. You have completely got the better of me tonight, though I intended it to be the other way. Let us be good friends now.
So it has been the other way. But I suppose I must give in to it. I always got the worst of it from Liz, and now I suppose it'll be the same from you.
Well, never mind. Come. Good night, dear old mother.
Well, I brought you up well, didn't I, dearie?
You did.
Well, you'll be good to your poor old mother for it, won't you?
I will, dear. Good night.
Oh, blessings on my own dearie darling. A mother's blessing.
End of Act 2. So we'll take a 10-minute break here now since we're rollicking along. We'll be back at, let's say, 2:16.
Okay, well, that was great. Thank you. I look forward to the rest of it. Great job, everybody. So,
How was this received back in the day?
Say what?
How was this received back in the day?
I think it was quite scandalous.
Yeah.
I don't really know the specifics of it, but it's like, oh my God, somebody who's actually writing about this and talking about the economics of it, which is really, as we say, it's like we haven't really made much progress in this,
That wasn't in the theaters back then, was it? People didn't say things like this.
I don't know.
It was produced.
Well, I know, but wasn't this pretty? I'm thinking of. By comparison, I suppose a time when Broadway was all the Follies kind of thing, until somebody decided let's put on something serious.
Mhm.
That's what this feels like. It feels so. Feels like such a slap. That's why I was asking what was on the stages in England back then.
Well, I think wasn't this first done in 1905? I think.
Yeah.
I don't know. These are David Cedar questions.
Yeah, I'd love to know like what the papers said and what society said and what you heard in the lobby.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And remember, then the upper classes definitely divided the poor into the deserving poor and the undeserving poor. And they were willing to, give a few shillings to the deserving poor. But charity was a hard sell.
Yeah.
in those
Drew,
days.
did you hear what I was asking?
No, I went to the bathroom. What's going on?
Well, thank you for sharing that. I'm wondering how this was received back then.
It was.
This first was produced. What did you hear in the lobbies? What did the newspapers say?
I think David could speak more to that. David, would you?
Oh, people were very shocked. I mean, it was, the only time I've ever actually seen this play on stage, Mrs. Warren was played by Ruth Gordon.
Oh my God!
Absolutely god awful.
Oh no.
Yeah, I saw Terry Jones.
Terrible in it.
Very
She had
different
no
from Ruth
sense of
Gordon.
the Britishness of the thing at all. She sounded like she was playing the matchmaker.
Yeah.
Oh man.
But
I can't remember who the rest of the cast
what
were.
did people say 115 years ago when this first was produced?
Well, I just was looking it up on Wikipedia, and apparently it was first done in 1902, after it had originally sort of been banned by the Lord Chamberlain. I mean, and that's the idea. It's like getting plays approved, like Shakespeare had to do, was going on in England till I think almost like the 1960s, really.
Yeah.
And it's just sort of inconceivable to us. But it was performed in New York, and a 1905 performance in New York, this time on a public stage, was interrupted by the police, who arrested the cast and crew for violating New York City's version of the Comstock laws.
Yeah.
Like the Hayes Office laws?
Wow.
Well, remember, Mae West got arrested right off the stage as well and put in jail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were still doing it up to the.
But don't you think it's interesting? This really presents the woman's point of view in terms of the hypocrisy of society, and yet all the men in the play live that double sort of life. They're all outwardly respectable. Maybe Frank not so much, but they're outwardly respectable, and yet. At least with the older gentlemen, they have all partaken of the wares sold by Mrs. Warren, and still consider themselves respectable gentlemen.
Yeah, I think when I first read this play, and this is sort of what, the introduction to sort of Shaw's thinking and Shaw's characterization, is that Vivi really doesn't object to it in itself. What impresses her is that her mother did something as a businesswoman. Like that was so interesting to me, that it's not like that Vivi is not a prude. She's just a different sort of woman. She's a woman that thinks differently than someone like Reverend Gardner, who's really trying to, even though he's partaken, but trying to
Thus
go by
proving
society.
Mrs. Warren's point.
Yeah,
Vivi
yeah,
Vivi
Shaw's
can
idea.
afford to think differently.
yeah, true. That's true.
Vivi is Shaw's idea of a new woman.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Yeah.
as is Gloria to some extent in You Never Can Tell, but that's handled in a much more comic vein.
Yeah. Yeah, really interesting.
Except it's probably, given her work, Vivi is likely to be middle class, which is a huge step up from her mother's situation, original situation. But to get up into those upper classes, she's going to have to either find herself an aristocrat with money, or, she'll never get there.
Well,
She can't get there on her own.
she is, I think, capable of making her own way and will do so, and
Yes.
doesn't care about the rest of that.
She's studying law and
Exactly.
one eye on the stock exchange. Man, seems like she's the way she describes herself sounds like my dad. Like curled up with a detective novel and a whiskey. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Sounds pretty good, actually.
Yeah, I know, so not too bad.
Although I'll forego the cigars, thank you.
Sure. Alrighty. So we got some 4 minutes left to relax before we get back into this.
Ah.
I have another small dog who has come to join me.
Oh.
Hey, doggy.
Who is this little
Hey.
guy?
Wait, hold the camera. I want to pin that. Oh, you took it away. There it is.
That's my boy.
I gotta get a bigger view here. Hey, puppy.
Oh, so
I love these. You got the typewriter down there, so we get a sense of scale.
I know. I moved on because I moved my I basically like live in a junk shop, but stuff.
Wow.
Yeah. Here's Milo. He doesn't like the door being shut, so I have to keep it open, or else he'll just.
anyway, that's not junk. That's vintage.
It is.
not
It's actually.
antique.
That's right.
This typewriter I found in my grandparents were morticians, and they still own the building, though someone else runs the business, and they have a big like garage back there which they've stored a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
And this is what I found in there, and it actually works. It was an Underwood S series built in I think it's 1941.
Ah.
1940s typewriter. And my grandmother used that when I was a kid. Then she got like a new electric typewriter.
Oh, yeah.
I remember those. I remember those.
Modern.
Yeah. And then the computer, my aunt worked on the computer, but my grandparents didn't touch that for a long time. I still haven't really.
You
Yeah.
look like you have a bunch of things that I watch Antique Roadshow, and sometimes I haven't quite a long time now, and I sit there and watch somebody who's got something that's worth thousands that didn't know about it, and I think, oh, I wish I had that.
I
right.
wish-
It solved my
Right.
financial problem.
yeah.
Yeah.
I like my things, though. I don't want to sell them till I need to. On my
Well,
side.
it's security.
It is security. That's true. Yeah. With my luck, though, it might not be.
Yeah, my mother got rid of a whole bunch of stuff that later on in life she said, oh, I wish we kept that because now it's worth
Yeah.
whatever,
Yeah. It's true.
Yeah. All right.
But
So
part of the problem is you don't know what's valuable and what's not.
right. And then who do you trust? Like someone could be like, oh, that's not very expensive at all. They'll take it from you and sell it. It's hard to know who to trust,
Yeah.
with
yeah.
that kind of stuff. Yeah.
But you never know.
You never know.
Linda Susswine found in the garbage room in her building, she found a book of buttons, obviously belonged to somebody who sold buttons. And it was a big book with lots and lots and lots of beautiful buttons. And she said, oh, this is cool. I like this. And so she kept it. And she then proceeded to go on eBay and she sold it for $75.
Jeez.
A button.
Buttons.
Wow.
Yeah, oh, sure. There are lots of button collectors.
On that note, let's get back into Mrs. Warren's profession. Non sequitur segue. All right. So when last we met our heroes. Okay. Act 3. In the rectory garden the next morning, with the sun shining from a cloudless sky. Oh, 11:30. Nice hour for a rector to come down for breakfast.
Don't mock, Frank. Don't mock. I'm a little...
Off colour.
no, sir. Unwell this morning. Where's your mother?
Oh, don't be alarmed. She's not here. Gone to town by 11:13 with Bessie. She left several messages for you. Do you feel equal to receiving them now, or shall I wait until you've breakfasted?
I have breakfasted, sir. I'm surprised at your mother going to town when we have people staying up with us. They'll think it very strange.
And possibly she has considered that. At all events, if Crofts is going to stay here and you are going to sit up every night with him until 4, recalling the incidents of your fiery youth, it is clearly my mother's duty as a prudent housekeeper to go up to the stores and order a barrel of whiskey and a few hundred siphons.
I did not observe that Sir George drank excessively.
You are not in condition to, Governor.
Do you mean to say that
I never saw a beneficed clergyman less sober. The anecdotes that you told about your past career were so awful that I really don't think Pratt would have passed a night under your roof if it hadn't been for the way my mother had and he took to one another?
Nonsense, sir. I am Sir George Crofts' host. I must talk to him about something, and he has only one subject. Where does Mr. Praed now?
He's driving my mother and Bessie to the station.
Is Crofts up yet?
Oh, long ago. He hasn't turned a hair. He's in much better practice than you. Has kept up ever since, probably. He's taken himself off somewhere to smoke.
Frank.
Yes?
Do you think the Warrens will expect to be asked here after yesterday afternoon?
They've been asked already.
What?
The Crofts informed us at breakfast that you told him to bring Mrs. Warren and Vivie over here today and to invite them to make this house their home. My mother then found she must go to town by the 11:13 train.
I never gave any such invitation. I never thought of such a thing.
How do you know, Governor, what you said and thought last night?
Good morning.
Oh, good morning. I must apologize for not having met you at breakfast. I have a touch of...
The clergyman's sore throat, Brad. Fortunately, not chronic.
Well, I must say your house is in a charming spot here. Really most charming.
Yes, it is indeed. Frank will take you for a walk, Mr. Praed, if you like. I'll ask you to excuse me. I must take the opportunity to write my sermon while Mrs. Gardner is away. You are all amusing yourselves. You won't mind, will you?
Oh, certainly not. Don't stand on the slightest ceremony with me.
Thank you.
A curious thing, it must be writing a sermon every week.
Ever so curious. If he did it, he buys them. He's gone for some soda water.
Oh, my dear boy, I wish you would be more respectful to your father. You know you can be so nice when you like.
My dear Praddy, you forget that I have to live with the governor. When two people live together, it don't matter whether they're father and son, or husband and wife, or brother and sister. They can't keep up a polite humbug that's so easy for 10 minutes on an afternoon call. Now, the governor, who unites to many and admirable domestic qualities, the irresoluteness of a sheep and the pompousness of an aggressiveness of a jackass.
No, pray, my dear Frank, remember, he is your father.
I give him due credit for that. But just imagine his telling Crofts to bring the Warrens over here. He must have been ever so drunk. You know, my dear Praddy, my mother wouldn't stand Mrs. Warren for a moment. Vivie mustn't come here until she's gone back to town.
But your mother doesn't know anything about Mrs. Warren, does she?
I don't know. Her journey to town looks as if she did. Not that my mother would mind in an ordinary way. She has stuck like a brick to lots of women who have been in trouble. But they were all nice women. That's what makes the real difference. Mrs. Warren, no doubt, has her merits, but she's ever so rowdy. And my mother simply wouldn't put up with her. So, hello.
Frank, Mrs. Warren and her daughter are coming across the heath with Crofts. I saw them from the study windows. What am I to say about your mother?
Oh, stick on your hat and go out and say how delighted you are to see them, and that Frank's in the garden and that Mother and Bessie have been called to the bedside of a sick relative, and we're ever so sorry they could not stop, and that you hope Mrs. Warren slept well, and say that any blessed thing except for the truth, and leave the rest to Providence.
But how are we to get rid of them afterwards?
There's no time to think of that now. Here.
He's so impetuous. I don't know what to do with him, Mr. Praed.
Now off with you. Praed and I will wait here to give the thing the unpremeditated air. He must get the old girl back to town somehow, Praed. Come, honestly, dear Praddy, do you like seeing them together?
Oh, why not?
Don't it make your flesh creep ever so little? That wicked old devil up to every villainy under the sun, I'll swear. And Vivi? Ugh.
Hush, pray, they're coming.
Look, she actually has her arm around the old woman's waist. It's her right arm. She began it. She's gone sentimental, by God. Ugh. Oh, now do you feel the creeps? Ever so delighted to see you, Mrs. Warren. This quiet old rectory garden becomes you perfectly.
I never. Did you hear that, George? He says I look quite well in a quiet old rectory garden.
You look well everywhere, Mrs. Warren.
Oh, bravo, Governor. Now look here, let's have a treat before lunch. First, let's see the church. Everyone has to do that. It's a regular old 13th century church, you know. The governor's ever so fond of it because he got up the restoration fund and had it completely rebuilt 6 years ago. Praed will be able to show you its points.
Oh, certainly, if the restoration hasn't left any to show.
I shall be pleased, I'm sure, if Sir George and Mrs. Warren really care about it.
Oh, come along and get it over.
I've no objection.
Not that way. We go through the fields, if you don't mind. Around here.
All right, all right.
Ain't you coming?
No. I want to give you a warning, Frank. You were making fun of my mother just now when you said about the rectory garden. That is barred in the future. Please treat my mother with as much respect as you treat your own.
My dear Viv, she wouldn't appreciate it. The two cases require different treatment. But what on earth has happened to you? Last night we were perfectly agreed as to your mother and her set. This morning I find you attitudinizing sentimentality with your arm around your parents' waist.
Attitudinizing?
That's how it struck me. First time I ever saw you do a second-rate thing.
Yes, Frank, there has been a change, but I don't think it a change for the worse. Yesterday I was a little prig.
And today?
Today, I know my mother better than you do.
Oh, heaven forbid.
What do you mean?
Viv, there's a Freemasonry among thoroughly immoral people that you know nothing of. You've too much character. That's the bond between your mother and me, and that's why I know her better than you'll ever know her.
You are wrong. You know nothing about her. If you knew the circumstances against which my mother had to struggle,
I should know why she is the way she is, shouldn't I? What difference would that make? Circumstances or no circumstances, Viv, you won't be able to stand your mother.
Why not?
Because she's an old wretch, Viv. If you ever put your arm around her waist in my presence again, I'll shoot myself there and then as a protest against the exhibition that revolts me.
Must I choose between dropping your acquaintance and dropping my mother's?
Oh, that would put the old lady ever at ever such a disadvantage. No, Viv, your uninfatuated little boy will have to stick to you in any case. But he's all the more anxious that you shouldn't make mistakes. It's no use, Viv. Your mother's impossible. She may be a good sort, but she's a bad lot, a very bad lot.
Frank, is she to be deserted by the world because she's what you call a bad lot? Has she no right to live?
Oh, no fear of that, Viv. She won't ever be deserted.
But I am to desert her, I suppose.
Oh, mustn't go and live with her? Little family group of mother and daughter wouldn't be a success. Spoil our little group.
What a little group.
The babes in the wood, Vivi and little Frank. Let's go and get covered up with leaves.
Fast asleep, hand in hand under the trees.
The wise little girl and her silly little boy,
The dear little boy with his dowdy little girl.
ever so peaceful and relieved from the imbecility of the little boy's father and the questionableness of the little girl's mother.
Little girl wants to forget all about her mother. What a pair of fools we are. Come, sit up. Gracious, your hair. I wonder, do all grown-ups play in that childish way when nobody is looking? I never did it when I was a child.
Neither did I. You were my first playmate. Oh, damn.
Why, damn, dear.
Shh, here's that brute Crofts.
Could I have a few words with you, Miss Vivi?
Certainly.
You'll excuse me, Gardner. They're waiting for you in the church, if you don't mind.
Anything to oblige you, Crofts, except church. If you should happen to want me, Vivens, ring the gate bell.
Pleasant young fellow, that, Miss Vivi. Pity he has no money, isn't it?
Do you think so?
Well, what's he to do? No profession, no property. What's he good for?
I realize his disadvantages, Sir George.
Oh, it's not that. But while we're in this world, we're in it. And money's money. Nice day, isn't it?
Very.
Well, that's it's not what I came to say. Now listen, Miss Vivi, I'm quite aware that I'm not a young lady's man.
Indeed, Sir George.
No. And to tell you the honest truth, I don't want to be either. But when I say a thing, I mean it. And when I feel a sentiment, I feel it in earnest. And what I value, I pay hard money for. That is the sort of man I am.
It does you great credit, I'm sure.
Oh, I don't mean to praise myself. I have my faults, heaven knows. No man is more sensible of that than I am. I know I'm not perfect, that one of the advantages of being a middle-aged man, for I'm not a young man, and I know it. But my code is a simple one, and I think a good one. Honor between a man and a man, fidelity between a man and woman, and no cant about this religion or that religion, but an honest belief that things are making for good on the whole.
A power not ourselves that makes for righteousness, eh?
Certainly. Not ourselves, of course. You understand what I mean. Well, now, as to practical matters, you may have an idea that I've flung my money about, but I haven't. I'm richer today than when I first came into the property. I've used my knowledge of the world to invest my money in ways that other men have overlooked. And whatever else I may be, I'm a safe man from the money point of view.
It's very kind of you to tell me all this.
Ah, well. Come, Miss Vivi, you needn't pretend you don't see what I'm driving at. I want to settle down with Lady Crofts. I suppose you think me very blunt, eh?
Not at all. I am very much obliged to you for being so definite and businesslike. I quite appreciate the offer, the money, the position, Lady Crofts, and so on. But I think I will say no if you don't mind. I'd rather not.
In no hurry. It was only just to let you know in case young Gardner should try to trap you. Leave the question open.
My no is final. I won't go back from it.
You know, I'm a good deal older than you. 25 years, quarter of a century. I shan't live forever. And I'll take care that you shall be well off when I'm gone.
I am proof against even that inducement, Sir George. Don't you think you'd better take your answer? There's not the slightest chance of my altering it.
Well, no matter. I can tell you some things that would change your mind fast enough, but I won't, because I'd rather win you by honest affection. I was a good friend to your mother. Ask her whether I wasn't. She'd never have made the money that paid for your education if it hadn't been for my advice and help, not to mention the money I advanced her. Now, there are not many men who would have stood by her as I have. I put not less than £40,000 into it, from first to last.
Do you mean to say that you were my mother's business partner?
Yes. Now just think of all the trouble and the explanations it would save if we were able to keep the whole thing in the family, so to speak. You ask your mother whether she'd like to have to explain all of her affairs to a perfect stranger.
I see no difficulty, since I understand that the business is wound up and the money invested.
Wound up? Well, wind up a business that's paying 35% in the worst years? Not likely. Who told you that?
Do you mean that is still... what business are you talking about?
Well, the fact is, it's not what would be considered a high-class business in my set. The country set, you know. Our set it will be, if you think better of my offer. Not that there's any mystery about it, don't think that. Of course, you know by your mother's being in it that it's perfectly straight and honest. I've known her for many years, and I can say of her that she'd cut off her hands sooner than touch anything that was not what it ought to be. I'll tell you all about it if you like. I don't know whether you've found in traveling how hard it is to find a really comfortable private hotel.
Yes, go on.
Well, that's all it is. Your mother has got a genius for managing such things. We've got 2 in Brussels, 1 in Ostend, 1 in Vienna, and 2 in Budapest. Of course, there are others besides ourselves in it, but we hold most of the capital, and your mother's indispensable as a managing director. You've noticed, I say, that she travels a good deal. But you see, you can't mention such things in society. Once you let out the word hotel, everyone thinks you keep a public house. And you wouldn't like people to say that of your mother, would you? And that's why we're so reserved about it. By the way, you'll keep all this to yourself, won't you? Since it's been a secret so long, it'd better remain so.
And this is the business you invite me to join you in?
No. My wife shan't be troubled with business. You'll not be in it more than you've always been.
I've always been. What do you mean?
Only that you've always lived on it. It paid for your education, the dress you have on your back. Don't turn up your nose at business, Miss Vivi. Where would your Newnhams and Girtons be without it?
Take care. I know what this business is.
Who told you?
Your partner, my mother.
The old...
Just so.
He ought to have had more consideration for you. I'd never have told you.
I think you would have probably have told me when we were married. It would have been a more convenient weapon to break me in with.
I never intended that. On my word as a gentleman, I never intended it. I didn't.
It doesn't matter. I suppose you understand that when we leave here today, our acquaintance ceases.
Why? Is it for helping your mother?
My mother was a very poor woman who had no reasonable choice but to do what she did. You were a rich gentleman, and you did the same for the sake of 35%. You're a pretty common sort of scoundrel, I think. That is my opinion of you.
Go it, little missy, go it. It doesn't hurt me, and it amuses you. But why the devil shouldn't I invest my money that way? I take the interest on my capital like other people. I hope you don't think I dirty my own hands with the work. Come, you wouldn't refuse the acquaintance of my mother's cousin, the Duke of Belgravia, because some of the rents he gets are earned in queer ways. You wouldn't cut the Archbishop of Canterbury, I suppose, because the ecclesiastical commissioners have a few publicans and sinners among their tenants? Do you remember your Crofts Scholarship at Newnham? Well, that was founded by my brother, the MP, and he gets 22%. He gets his 22% out of a factory with 600 girls in it, not one of them getting wages enough to live on. Now, how do you suppose they manage when they have no family to fall back on? Ask your mother. And do you expect me to turn my back on 35% when all of the rest are pocketing all they can like sensible men? No, no such fool. If you're going to pick and choose your acquaintances on moral principles, you'd better clear out of this country, unless you want to cut yourself out of all decent society.
You might go on to point out that I myself never asked where the money I spent came from. I believe I am just as bad as you.
Of course you are. And a very good thing, too. What harm does it do, after all? So you don't think me such a scoundrel as you come to think it over, eh?
I have shared profits with you, and I admitted you just now to the familiarity of knowing what I think of you.
To be sure you did. You won't find me a bad sort. I don't go in for being superfine intellectually, but I've plenty of honest feeling, and the old Crofts breed comes out in a sort of instinctive hatred of anything low, in which I'm sure you'll sympathize with me. Believe me, Miss Vivy, the world isn't such a bad place as the croakers make out. As long as you don't fly openly in the face of society, society doesn't ask any inconvenient questions, and it makes precious short work of the cads who do. There are no secrets better kept than the secrets everybody guesses. In the class of people I can introduce you to, no lady or gentleman would go so far as to forget themselves, as to discuss my business affairs or your mother's. No man can offer you a safer position.
I suppose you really think you're getting on famously with me.
Well, I hope I may flatter myself that you think better of me than you did at first.
I hardly find you worth thinking about at all now. When I think of the society that tolerates you and the laws that protect you, when I think of how helpless 9 out of 10 young girls would be in the hands of you and my mother, the unmentionable woman and her capitalist bully, You need not. I feel among the damned already.
You think I'll put up with this from you, you young devil?
Be quiet. Someone will answer the bell.
Will you have the rifle, Viv, or shall I operate?
Frank, have you been listening?
Only for the bell, I assure you, so that you shouldn't have to wait. I think I showed great insight into your character, Crofts.
Well, for 2 pins, I'd take that gun from you and break it across your head.
Pray don't. I'm ever so careless in handling firearms, sure to be a fatal accident with a reprimand from the coroner's jury for my negligence.
Put the rifle away, Frank. It's quite unnecessary.
Quite right, Viv. Much more sportsmanlike to catch him in a trap. Crofts, there are 15 cartridges in the magazine there, and I am a dead shot at the present distance and at an object of your size.
Well, you needn't be afraid. I'm not going to touch you.
Ever so magnanimous of you under the circumstances. Thank you.
I'll just tell you this before I go. May interest you, since you're so fond of one another. Allow me, Mr. Frank, to introduce you to your half-sister, the eldest daughter of the Reverend Samuel Gardner. Miss Vivy, your half-brother. Good morning.
You'll testify before the coroner that it's an accident, Viv.
Fire now. You may.
So stop. Take care. Oh, you've given your little boy such a turn. Suppose it had gone off. Ugh.
Suppose it had. Do you think it would have been a relief to have some sharp physical pain tearing through me?
Take it ever so easy, dear Viv. Remember, even if the rifle scared that fellow into telling the truth for the first time in his life, that only makes us babes in the woods in earnest. Come, be covered up with leaves again.
Oh, not that. Oh, you make all my flesh creep.
Why? What's the matter?
Goodbye.
Hello, stop, Viv, where are you going? Where shall I find you?
At Honoria Fraser's chambers, 67 Chancery Lane for the rest of my life.
But I said, wait. Oh, dash it. End of Act 3. Act 4. Honoria Fraser's chambers in Chancery Lane. An office at the top of the new stone buildings with a glass plate window, distempered walls, electric light, and a patent stove. Its upper panel is opaque glass, lettered in black on the outside, Fraser and Warren. Come in, it's not locked.
What are you doing here?
They're waiting to see you. I've been up here for hours. Is this the way you attend to your business?
I've been away exactly 20 minutes for a cup of tea. How did you get in?
The staff had not left when I arrived. He's gone to play cricket on Primrose Hill. Why don't you employ a woman and give her sex a chance?
What have you come for?
Viv, let's go and enjoy the Saturday half-holiday somewhere, like the staff. What do you say to Richmond, and then a music hall and a jolly supper?
Can't afford it. I shall put in another 6 hours' work before I go to bed.
We can't afford it, can we? Aha, look here. Gold, Viv, gold.
Where did you get it?
Gambling, Viv, gambling. Poker.
It's meaner than stealing it. No, I'm not coming.
But my dear Viv, I want to talk to you ever so seriously.
Very well. Sit down in Henria's chair and talk here. I like 10 minutes chat after tea. No use groaning. I'm inexorable. Pass that cigar box, will you?
Nasty womanly habit. Nice men don't do it any longer.
Yes, they object to the smell in the office, and we've had to take to cigarettes. See?
She opens a
Go
box,
ahead.
takes out a cigarette. Go ahead. Oh, well, I want to know what you've done, what arrangements you've made.
Everything was settled 20 minutes after I arrived here. Henria's found the business too much for her this year, and she was on the point of sending for me and proposing a partnership when I walked in and told her I hadn't a farthing in the world. So she installed myself and packed her off for a fortnight's holiday. What happened at Haslemere when I left?
Nothing at all. I said you'd gone to town on particular business.
Well,
either they were too flabbergasted to say anything, or else Crofts had prepared your mother. Anyhow, she daren't say anything, and Crofts didn't say anything, and Praddy only stared. After tea, they got up and went, and I've not seen them since.
that's all right.
Do you intend to stick in this confounded place?
Yes, these 2 days have given me back all my strength and self-possession. I will never take a holiday again as long as I live.
You look quite happy, and as hard as nails.
Well, for me, that I am.
Look here, Viv, we must have an explanation. We parted the other day at a complete misunderstanding.
Well, clear it up.
You remember what Crofts said?
Yes.
The revelation was supposed to bring about a complete change in the nature of our feeling for one another. It placed us on a footing as brother and sister.
Yes.
Have you ever had a brother?
No.
Then you don't know what being brother and sister feels like. Now, I have lots of sisters, the fraternal feeling that is quite similar to me. I assure you my feeling for you is not in the least in the world like that. The girls will go their way, I will go mine, and we shan't care if we never see one another again. That's brother and sister, but as to you, I can't be easy if I have to pass a week without seeing you. That's not brother and sister. It's exactly what I felt an hour before Crofts made his revelation. In short, dear Viv, it's love's young dream.
The same feeling, Frank, that brought your father to my mother's feet. Is it that?
I very strongly object, Viv, to have my feelings compared with any of that Reverend Samuel is capable of harboring. And I object still more to a comparison of you to your mother. Besides, I don't believe the story. I have taxed my father with it and obtained from him what I consider tantamount to a denial.
What did he say?
He said he was sure there must be some mistake.
Do you believe him?
I am prepared to take his word against Crofts.
Does it make any difference? I mean, in your imagination or conscience, for of course it makes no real difference.
None whatever to me.
Nor to me.
But this is ever so surprising. I thought our whole relations were altered in your imagination and conscience, as you put it. the moment those words were out of that brute's muzzle.
No, it was not that. I didn't believe him. I only wish I could.
Eh?
I think brother and sister would be a very suitable relation for us.
You really mean that?
Yes. It's the only relation I care for, even if we could afford any other. I mean that.
My dear Viv, why didn't you say so before? I'm ever so sorry for persecuting you. I understand, of course.
Understand what?
Oh, I'm not a fool in the ordinary sense, only in the scriptural sense of doing all things a wise man declared to be folly after trying them himself on the most extensive scale. I see I am no longer Vivum's little boy. Don't be alarmed, I shall never call you Vivums again. At least unless you get tired of your new little boy, whoever he may be.
My new little boy?
Must be a new little boy. Always happens that way, no other way, in fact.
None that you know of, fortunately for you.
My curse upon the caller, whoever he be.
It's Pratt. He's gone to Italy and wants to say goodbye. I asked him to call this afternoon. Go let him in.
We can continue our conversation after his departure for Italy. I'll stay him out. How are you, Praddy? Delighted to see you. Come in.
Oh, how do you do, Miss Warren? I start in an hour for Holborn Viaduct. I wish I could persuade you to try Italy.
What for?
Why, to saturate yourself with beauty and romance, of course.
No use, Praddy. Viv is little Philistine. She is indifferent to my romance and insensible to my beauty.
Mr. Pratt, once and for all, there is no beauty and no romance in life for me. Life is what it is, and I am prepared to take it as it is.
You will not say that if you come with me in Verona and on to Venice, you will cry with delight at living in such a beautiful world.
This is most eloquent, Praddy. Keep it up.
Oh, I assure you, I have cried. I shall cry again. I hope at 50, at your age, Miss Warren, you would not need to go so far as Verona. Your spirits would absolutely fly up to the mere sight of Ostend. You would be charmed with the gaiety, the vivacity, the happy air of Brussels.
Ugh!
What's the matter?
Hello, Viv.
Can you find no better example of your beauty and romance than Brussels to talk to me about?
Of course, it's very different from Verona. I don't suggest for a moment that...
Probably the beauty and romance come to much in the same in both places.
My dear Miss Warren, Is anything the matter?
She thinks your enthusiasm frivolous, Praddy. She's had ever such a serious call.
Hold your tongue, Frank. Don't be silly.
Do you call this good manners, Prad?
Shall I take him away, Miss Warren? I feel sure we have disturbed you at your work.
Sit down. I'm not ready to go back to work yet. You both think I have an attack of nerves. Not a bit of it. But there are two subjects I want dropped, if you don't mind. One of them is love's young dream in any shape or form. The other is the romance and beauty of life, especially Ostend and the gaiety of Brussels. You are welcome to any illusions you may have left on these subjects. I have none. If we are three to remain friends, I must be treated as a woman of business, permanently single and permanently unromantic.
I also shall remain permanently single until you change your mind. Praddy, change the subject. Be eloquent about something else.
I'm afraid there's nothing else in the world that I can talk about. The gospel of art is the only one I can preach. I know Miss Warren is a great devotee of the gospel of getting on. But we can't discuss that without hurting your feelings, Frank, since you're determined not to get on.
Oh, don't mind my feelings. Give me some improving advice by all means. It does me ever so much good. Have another try to make a successful man of me, Viv. Come, let's have it all. Energy, thrift, foresight, self-respect, character. Don't you hate people who have no character, Viv?
Oh, stop. Let us have no more of that horrible cant. Mr. Pratt, if there are really only those two gospels in the world, we had better all kill ourselves. for the same taint is in both, through and through.
There is a touch of poetry about you today, Viv, which has hitherto been lacking.
My dear Frank, aren't you a little unsympathetic?
No, it's good for me. Keeps me from being sentimental.
Checks your strong natural propensity that way, don't it?
Oh, yes. Go on. Don't spare me. I was sentimental for one moment in my life. Beautifully sentimental by moonlight, and now...
I say, Viv, take care. Don't give yourself away.
Oh, do you think Mr. Pratt does not know all about my mother? You had better have told me that morning, Mr. Pratt. You're very old-fashioned in your delicacies, after all.
Surely it is you who are a little old-fashioned in your prejudices, Miss Warren. I feel bound to tell you, speaking as an artist, and believing that the most intimate human relationships are far beyond and above the scope of the law, that though I know that your mother is an unmarried woman, I do not respect her the less on that account.
Hear,
I
hear.
respect her more.
Hear, hear.
Is that all you know?
Certainly that is all.
Then you neither of you know anything. Your guesses are innocence itself compared with the truth.
I hope not. I hope not, Miss Warren.
You are not making it easy for me to tell you, Mr. Pratt.
If there is anything worse, that is anything else, are you sure you are right to tell us, Miss Warren?
I am sure that if I had the courage, I should spend the rest of my life in telling everybody, stamping and branding it into them until they all felt their part in its abomination as I feel mine. There is nothing I despise more than the wicked convention that protects these things by forbidding a woman to mention them. And yet I can't tell you. The two infamous words that describe what my mother is are ringing in my ears and struggling on my tongue, but I can't utter them. The shame of them is too horrible for me. Here, let me draft you a prospectus.
She's mad. Do you hear, Viv? Mad. Come, pull yourself together.
You shall see. Paid up capital, no less than £40,000 standing in the name of Sir George Crofts, Baronet, the chief shareholder. Premises at Brussels, Ostend, Vienna, and Budapest. Managing director, Mrs. Warren. And now don't let's forget her qualifications, the two words. There. Oh no, don't read it, don't.
Dear Viv, that's all right. I read what you wrote, and so did Praddy. We understand. And we remain, as this leaves us at present, yours ever so devotedly.
We do indeed, Miss Warren. I declare you are the most splendidly courageous woman I ever met.
Don't stir, Viv. If you don't want to, take it easy.
Thank you. You can always depend on me for two things, not to cry and not to faint. I shall need much more courage than that when I tell my mother that we have come to a parting of ways. Now I must go into the next room for a moment to make myself neat again, if you don't mind.
Shall we go away?
No, I'll be back presently, only for a moment.
Oh, what an amazing revelation. I'm extremely disappointed at Crofts. I am indeed.
No, I'm not in the least. I feel he's perfectly accounted for at last. But what a facer for me, Praddy. I can't marry her now.
Frank, let me tell you, Gardner, that if you desert her now, you will behave very despicably.
Oh, good old Praddy, ever chivalrous. But you mistake. It's not the moral aspect of the case. It's the money aspect. I really can't bring myself to touch the old woman's money now.
And was that what you were going to marry on?
What else? I haven't any money. The smallest turn of making it. If I married Viv now, she would have to support me, and I should cost her more than I'm worth.
But surely a clever, bright fellow like you can make something by your own brains.
Oh, yes, a little. I made that all yesterday, about an hour and a half. But I made it in a highly speculative business. No, dear Pradley, even if Bessie and Georgina marry millionaires and the governor dies after cutting them off of the shilling, I shall have only 400 a year. And he won't die until he's 70. He hasn't originality enough. I shall be on short allowance for the next 20 years. No short allowance for Viv, if I can help it. They withdraw gracefully and leave the field to the gilded youth of England. So that's settled. I shan't worry her about it. I'll send her a little note after we're gone. She'll understand.
Good fellow Frank, I heartily beg your pardon, but must you never see her again?
Never see her again? Hang it all, be reasonable. I shall come along as often as possible to be her brother. I cannot understand the absurd consequences you romantic people expect from the most ordinary transactions. Oh, I wonder who this is. Would you mind opening the door? If it's a client, it will look more respectable than I appeared.
Certainly. Oh, my dear Kitty, come in, come in.
Oh, what? You're here, are you?
Here and charmed to see you. You come like the breath of spring.
Oh, get out with your nonsense. Where's Phoebe? Brandy, won't she see me, don't you think?
My dear Kitty, don't distress yourself. Why should she not?
Oh, you can never see why not. You're too innocent. Mr. Frank, did she say anything to you?
She must see you if... You'll wait till she comes in?
Why shouldn't I wait?
My dear Mrs. Warren, suppose you were a sparrow, ever so tiny and pretty, a little sparrow hopping on the roadway, and you saw a steamroller coming in a direction. Would you wait for it?
Oh, don't bother me with your sparrows. What did she run away from Hazelmere like that for?
I'm afraid she'll tell you if you rashly await her return.
Do you want me to go away?
No, I always want you to stay. But I advise you to go away.
What? I'll never see her again?
Precisely.
Daddy, don't let him be so cruel to me. Oh, she'll be so angry with me if she sees I've been crying.
You know that Praddy's a soul of kindness, Mrs. Warren. Praddy, what do you say? Go or stay?
I really should be very sorry to cause you unnecessary pain, but I think perhaps you'd better not wait. The fact is...
Shh, it's too late, she's coming.
Oh, don't tell her I was crying. Oh, well, dearie. So, here you are at last.
I'm glad you have come. I want to speak to you. You said you were going, Frank, I think?
Yes, will you come with me, Mrs. Warren? What do you say to a trip to Richmond and the theatre this evening? There is a safety in Richmond. No steamroller there.
Nonsense, Frank. My mother will stay here.
Oh, I don't know. Perhaps I'd better go. We're disturbing you at your work.
Mr. Pratt, please take Frank away.
Come, Frank. Goodbye, Miss Vivi.
Goodbye. Pleasant trip.
Thank you. I hope so.
Goodbye.
Goodbye, Goodbye, Kitty.
Oh,
Goodbye.
Goodbye, Viv.
well, Vivi, what did you go away like that for without saying a word to me? How could you do such a thing? And what have you done to poor George? I wanted him to come with me, but he shuffled out of it. I could see that he was quite afraid of you. Only fancy, he wanted me not to come, as if I should be afraid of you, dearie. But of course, I told him it was all settled and comfortable between us and that we were on the best of terms. Bibi, what's the meaning of this? I got it from the bank this morning.
It is my month's allowance. They sent it to me as usual the other day. I Simply send it back to be placed to your credit and ask them to send you the lodgement receipt. In the future, I shall support myself.
Wasn't it enough? Oh, why didn't you tell me? I'll double it. I was intending to double it. Only let me know how much you want.
You know very well that has nothing to do with it. From this time, I go my own way, in my own business, among my own friends, and you will go yours. Goodbye.
Goodbye?
Yes, goodbye. Come, don't let us make a useless scene. You understand perfectly well. Sir George Crofts has told me the whole business.
Oh, silly. Oh,
Just so.
he ought to have his tongue cut out. But I thought it was ended. You said you didn't mind.
Excuse me, I do mind.
But I explained.
You explained how it came about. You did not tell me that it is still going on.
Vivi, do you know how rich I am?
I have no doubt you are very rich.
But you don't know what all that means. You're too young. Means a new dress every day. Means theatres and balls every night. It means having the pick of all the gentlemen in Europe at your feet. It means a lovely house and plenty of servants. It means the choicest of eating and drinking. It means everything you like, everything you want, everything you can think of. And what are you here? A mere drudge, toiling and moiling early and late for your bare living and 2 cheap dresses a year? Think it over. You're shocked. I know. I can enter into your feelings, and I think they do you credit. But trust me, nobody will believe you. You may take my word for that. I know what young girls are, and I know you'll think better of it when you've turned it over in your mind.
So that's how it's done, is it? You must have said that to many a woman to have it so pat.
What harm am I asking you to do, Vivi? Listen to me. You don't understand. You were taught wrong on purpose. You don't know what the world is really like.
Taught wrong on purpose? What do you mean?
I mean that you're throwing away all your chances for nothing. You think that people are what they pretend to be. That the way you were taught at school and college to think right and proper is the way things really are, but it's not. It's all only a pretense to keep the cowardly, slavish, common run of people quiet. Do you want to find that out like other women at 40 when you've thrown yourself away and lost your chances? Or won't you take it in good time now from your own mother that loves you and swears to you that it's the truth, gospel truth? Vivi, the big people, the clever people, the managing people, they all know it. They do as I do and think what I think. I know plenty of them. I know them to speak to introduce you to make friends of them. I know I have to make friends for you. I don't mean anything wrong. That's what you don't understand. Your head is full of ignorant ideas about me. What do the people that taught you know about life or about people like me? When did they ever meet me or speak to me or let anyone tell them about me, the fools? Would they ever have done anything for you if I hadn't paid them? Haven't I told you that I want you to be respectable? Haven't I brought you up to be respectable? And how can you keep it up without my money and my influence and Lizzie's friends? Can't you see that you're cutting your own throat as well as breaking my heart in turning your back on me?
I recognize the Crofts philosophy of life, Mother. I heard it all from him that day at the gardener's.
You think I want to force that played out old sot on you? I don't, Vivi, on my oath, I don't.
It would not matter if you did. You would not succeed. Mother, you don't at all know the sort of person I am. I don't object to Crofts more than any other coarsely built man of his class. Tell you the truth, I rather admire him for being so strong-minded enough to enjoy himself in his own way and make plenty of money instead of living the usual shooting, hunting, dining out, tailoring, loathing life of his set merely because all the rest do it. And I'm perfectly aware that if I'd been in the same circumstances as my Aunt Liz, I'd have done exactly what she did. I don't think I'm more prejudiced or straight-laced than you. I think I'm less. I'm certain I'm less sentimental. I know very well that fashionable morality is all a pretense, and that if I took your money and devoted the rest of my life to spending it fashionably, I might be as worthless and vicious as the silliest woman could possibly be without having a word said to me about it. But I don't want to be worthless. I shouldn't enjoy trotting about the park to advertise my dressmaker and carriage builder, or being bored at the opera to show off a shop window full of diamonds.
But
Wait a moment, I'm not done. Tell me why you continue your business now and that you're independent of it. Your sister, you told me, has left all that behind her. Why didn't you do the same?
oh, well, it's all very easy for Liz. She likes good society and has the air of being a lady. Imagine me in a cathedral town. Well, the very rooks in the trees would find me out, even if I could stand the dullness of it. I must have work and excitement, or I should go melancholy mad. And what else is there for me to do? The life suits me. I'm fit for it, and not for anything else. If I didn't do it, somebody else would, so I don't do any real harm by it. And then it brings in money. And I like making money. No, it's no use. I can't give it up. Not for anybody. But what need you know about it? I'll never mention it. I keep crofts away. I'll not trouble you much. You see, I have to be constantly running about from one place to another. You'll be quit of me altogether when I die.
No, I am my mother's daughter. I am like you. I must have work and must make more money than I spend. But my work is not your work, and my way is not your way. We must part. It will not make much difference to us. Instead of meeting one another for perhaps a few months and 20 years, we shall never meet. That is all.
Phoebe, I meant to have been more with you. I did indeed.
It's no use, Mother. I am not to be changed by a few cheap tears and entreaties any more than you are, I dare say.
Oh, you call a mother's tears cheap?
They cost you nothing, and you ask me to give you the peace and quietness of my whole life in exchange for them. What use would my company be to you if you could get it? What have we two in common that could make either of us happy together?
Oh, we're mother and daughter. I want my daughter. I've a right to you. Who's to care for me when I'm old? Plenty of girls have taken to me like daughters and cried at leaving me. But I let them all go because I had you to look forward to. I kept myself lonely for you. You've no right to turn on me now and refuse to do your duty as a daughter.
My duty as a daughter. I thought we should come to that presently. Now, once and for all, Mother, you want a daughter and Frank wants a wife. I don't want a mother, and I don't want a husband. I have spared neither Frank nor myself in sending him about his business. Do you think I will spare you?
Oh, I know the sort you are. No mercy for yourself or anyone else. I know. My experience has done that for me anyhow. I can tell the pious, canting, hard, selfish woman when I meet her. Well, keep yourself to yourself. I don't want you. But listen to this. Do you know what I would do with you if you were a baby again? I, as sure as there's a heaven above us.
Strangle me, perhaps?
No. I'd bring you up to be a real daughter to me, and not what you are now with your pride and your prejudices and the college education you stole from me. Yes, stole. Deny it if you can. What was it but stealing? I'd bring you up in me own house, I would.
If when one of your own houses.
Oh, listen to her. Listen to how she spits on her mother's grey hairs. Oh, may you live to have your own daughter tear and trample on you as you've trampled on me. And you will. You will. No woman ever had luck with her mother's curse on her.
I wish you wouldn't rant, Mother. It only hardens me. Come, I suppose I am the only young woman you ever had in your power you did good to. Don't spoil it all now.
Oh, yes, heaven forgive me, it's true. And you are the only one that ever turned on me. Oh, the justice, the injustice of it, the injustice. I always wanted to be a good woman. I tried honest work and I was slave driven until I cursed the day I ever heard of honest work. I was a good mother. And because I made my daughter a good woman, she turns me out as if I were a leper. Oh, if I only had my life to live over again. I'd talk to that lying clergyman in the school from this time forth. So help me heaven in my last hour. I'll do wrong and nothing but wrong, and I'll prosper on it.
Yes, it's better to choose your line and go through with it. If I'd been you, Mother, I might have done as you did, but I should not have lived one life and believed in another. You are a conventional woman at heart, and that is why I am bidding you goodbye now. I am right, am I not?
Right? To throw away all my money?
No, right to get rid of you. I should be a fool not to, isn't it so?
Oh, well, yes, if you come to that, I suppose you are. But Lord help the world if everybody took to doing the right thing. No, I'd better go than stay where I'm not wanted.
Won't you shake hands?
No, thank you. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
She goes buoyantly to her place at the writing table. She pushes the electric lamp out of the way, pulls over a great sheaf of papers, and is in the act of dipping her pen in the ink when she finds Frank's note. She opens it unconcernedly and reads it quickly, giving a little laugh and at some quaint turn of expression in it.
And goodbye, Frank.
She tears up the note and tosses the pieces into the wastepaper basket without a second thought, then goes to her work with a plunge and soon becomes absorbed in its figures. End of play.
Whew.
Wow.
Yeah.
I almost have no words for this. It was so well done.
Wow, guys. Wow.
Bravo. Well done. Well done.
Oh, we
That
make a
was
good
great.
crew, don't we?
That was
Certainly Shaw's most unpleasant play, that's for sure. But
Oh,
also
yeah.
one of his most moving.
Oh man, Paula, that little thing you did before you said no thank you to the handshake.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
What an
Oh man, and that's recorded. You can go look at it.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
will.
You should.
Oh.
It was so amazing. Paula, you're just incredible.
Mm.
Oh, thank you. Thank
Ditto.
you.
I say the
But
same thing.
I couldn't have asked for a better daughter.
Mm. Read. What a, yeah.
Wonderful to
Or
you.
better old boyfriends.
Yeah.
Clinton, I loved your constipation when you stumbled on the word unmarried woman. I was like, that's so funny. I wasn't following the script. Is there like a ... or anything there to indicate you should do that, or you just did it?
No, I think I just did it.
That's great.
He's just
Well,
an
because I want to say, what we never say, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
like it's never actually.
Looked like it was the hardest word you ever came out with.
Mhm.
Great,
Yeah.
guys. It was fun.
It was interesting. I looked it up. It was performed in 1902 in England for the first time, but it was performed at a private club because it had been
Yeah.
banned, and that it wasn't actually performed on the public stage in England until 1925. So like
Whoa.
23 years after it was originally done.
That's really interesting.
So-
It's
Wow.
funny because there's a similar sort of myth about Troilus and Cressida, that it was like a closet play, and it deals with the same themes.
Yeah.
That it was sort of a closet play, and there's a rumor that no one performed it until World War II, and I'm not sure if that's true or if anybody will know that's true, but it wasn't until that period that people had the taste for something so bitter, which is an interesting idea and an interesting parallel.
Yeah.
Yeah, It's, people still don't feel real comfortable talking about sex. It's like much
what a
easier to have a
surprise.
tragedy where everybody dies.
Yeah, I'd rather you, because you don't get that. What's interesting is I think people are fine if they get the catharsis. If someone says this is good or this is bad, someone dies or someone, if you have, but if it's left hanging without a handshake at the end there,
Yeah.
it's really,
Yeah.
Yeah.
this is not resolved. The problem is not resolved. Maybe Vivi will try to resolve it in years and years. Women will have more opportunities, but just sits there.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just, but we still have the same difficulties talking about sex today. It's just that there's more sex to talk about.
Well, yeah, and we're so comfortable with making money off of it in certain ways these days.
Oh yeah.
The image and the promise of sex sort of in media and advertising. But still there is an undercurrent of the things that lots of people still profit off of. And it's not even with sex. I think this is the thing, is it's not just sex, but things that people profit off of that are not okay. That, and in this case, like maybe Mrs. Warren treated all her girls well, but a lot of times we profit off of things that are not okay, and we know it happens, but we still go on blaming other people for their bad behavior, but still profiting off of our
Well, it's always fascinated me that the porn industry is so prosperous in middle America, where they're all claiming to be so religious and proper, and and yet
I think those two impulses feed each other. You don't have that vigor to.
Yeah.
We've never
Those
shaken off
evangelists.
the original puritanity that founded this country.
Yes. Oh yeah.
How many of those evangelists, the loudest ones, turn up in roadside motels with underage hookers? Come on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's true. And it's also the thing of like how it was stopped because of the Comstock laws, which I was looking up, which were all of these things that sort of to stop obscenity through the mails, and
Right.
sending things that like stuff is crazy. That finally, which also was like, this idea. I mean, it's so funny that also these sort of so-called conservatives who want to have all of these rights for guns, but are then all great with like, well, but a woman doesn't have a right to make basic decisions about
Women
her own
don't have
body.
the rights.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I think that's a lot of culture too. Just trying to be like the people you admire and that brought you up and that remind you of, grandfather and stuff. I think it's all knit. It's not logic.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
Not.
Yeah.
It's a deep, deep need. We all need our mommies and daddies.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's Sunday, but I just had a patient before this who's,
Oh wait, we're still live on YouTube.
Yeah, let's before we divulge this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's
Let's not record.
anybody else got any other things?
I wasn't